Well, I cannot believe it's Thursday already. The weeks keep going by so quickly for me, and I'm assuming that you are having that same issue as well. I'm so glad that we can come together today, and I want to, first of all, I want us to just pray for all the people that are going to be affected by these hurricanes coming in. So I just want to take a minute and do that. Lord, I ask right now for protection, for peace, for safety, for security. I pray that the storm will get weaker instead of stronger. I pray, Lord, that you will, and that people will get stronger instead of weaker, that faith will arise, and that you will bring protection and safety to our family, to our friends, and those that we don't even know, Lord, but that you will protect them. We thank you for it in Jesus' name. I'm so glad that we can go to the Lord and just ask him for things that we need, and in natural disasters and anything that we're facing. He's so good to us that way. Okay, so Monday we talked about the story of Lazarus being raised from the dead, and I want to kind of continue in that topic today as you're getting ready to, you're ending your week and you're getting ready to go into your weekend. I just want to talk today about where we go in disappointment. So I want to encourage you, as I did on Monday, to look at John chapter 11. I would encourage you to read the whole chapter. It's very insightful, and I'm sure that you'll gain a lot from it. I'm going to pull a few verses. As I did on Monday, we talked about how that when Jesus heard about Lazarus' sickness, instead of rushing to him, the word says that he loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus so much that he stayed exactly where he was. And so we talked about how sometimes the Lord will do things that will reveal more of himself to us. And so they knew him as healer, they knew him as friend, and he wanted them to see that he was also the resurrection and the life. And so, but when I was continuing to read and think on this story, I couldn't get past the disappointment that Mary and Martha had to have been experiencing. And I know that in my life, I have gone through a lot of disappointment, as you have as well. And sometimes we don't know what to do when we feel disappointed. And I want you to consider, Martha and Mary's position. They were friends with Jesus. They knew he could heal. It wasn't a surprise. It wasn't like they wondered if he could. They'd seen him do it. They knew he could. And so just this disappointment of Jesus in their minds, from their perspectives, he did not show up on time. And they had to go through the entire process of preparing Lazarus' body and putting him in a grave and rolling the stone over the grave and mourning him and mourning that loss. And I know that all of us have experienced loss and disappointment in our life. But what I want to talk about today is where we go when we experience that disappointment. Where do we go when we experience that loss? I think that there is just a real strong feeling that I have that sometimes we put so much pressure on ourselves that we shouldn't even be disappointed, which is not true. We're going to have disappointment. So the question is, where do we go with them? What do we do with it? Well, let's look at what Martha and Mary did. So Martha, as soon as she heard that Jesus was coming close, she went right to him. Mary, on the other hand, she stayed in the house to begin with. And, I want to point something out here, because I think that we've seen a vast difference between Martha and Mary in another account where Martha came to Jesus complaining about Mary. Hey, she needs to be helping me, and she's sitting at your feet worshiping. And we know the story that Jesus encouraged that, hey, Mary's doing a good thing by worshiping at my feet. So the reason I'm bringing this up is I think sometimes in our life, we stumble over what people aren't instead of valuing them for who they are. And I heard Bill Johnson say this quote. He says, value people for who they are without stumbling over who they are not. And this has been something that I've been asking the Lord to help me to do in my life, in all of my relationships, that the Lord will help me to value people in my life for who they are without stumbling over who they're not. And so I encourage you today to do that. That's just kind of a side note, because we're seeing the difference between Martha and Mary. Martha quickly goes to Jesus. Mary stays in the house until Martha comes and tells her, hey, Jesus is actually looking for you. Mary gets up, and the people that are mourning with her in the house, they automatically assume that Mary's going to the tomb to weep. But instead, Mary takes a different path. She doesn't go to the tomb to weep. She goes to where Jesus was. She's already done her weeping. She's in the middle of her weeping, and she decides, I'm going to go where Jesus is. And I think this is the answer for us in our disappointment. See, our life brings questions that we don't have answers to. Think about Martha and Mary. They loved their brother. They put all of this faith and hope towards that Jesus would get there in time to heal him. The disappointment that he didn't come when they thought had to be huge. But what did they do when he did come? They decided to not go to the tomb, but to go to him. And I want to encourage you today, go to Jesus. Trust him with the big question marks in your life. I know that is not easy to do, and I want to encourage you, do it anyway. He can handle your questions. Both Martha and Mary said to him, if you would have been here in time, he would not be dead right now. It wasn't like they were mincing words or anything like that. They were very honest. And so when you go to the Lord, he wants you to tell him, hey, I'm super disappointed in this. I don't understand. I know I went through a situation in my life where I was crying out to the Lord, and I said, Lord, this loss seems too big for me to bear. This disappointment seems too much for me. And I remember the Spirit of God, he spoke to me, and he said, Tammy, what you think is a loss is actually for your deliverance. And I realized I saw the Lord in a new light. This was like my resurrection, seeing him as the resurrection in life moment, like Mary and Martha had, where they knew him as healer. And I had known the Lord, and he was showing me a different side of him, that he has the ability to take what I think is a loss and say, no, it's for your deliverance. And so I want to encourage you today, listen, grieving is a process, and I know it well, and I want to encourage you to go through it. Grieving is a process that each of us have the different stages of grief that we need to go through. We need to process this. But in this process, in this grieving, or maybe it's not a loss of a person, like my situation I was talking about just a minute ago, wasn't a loss of a person, but a situation. Maybe there's so much disappointment in something that you had believed in and that you'd put your heart in, and that thing didn't come out how you intended it to. Go to Jesus. He's the one that can turn your heart to know exactly what his intentions are and what he wants you to learn through the situation. So I want to encourage you today, go the path, not to the tomb of looking to the past and weeping over what wasn't, and move to looking at Jesus so he can show you what he wants it to be. Move into looking forward, moving forward. Disappointment in our life is not, the enemy would want it to restrain us, to paralyze us, to keep us from having faith. But the Lord wants to use it to increase our faith, to trust him more, to see him more as our resurrection, as our life, as Jesus that we can run to and say, if you would have been here, this would have been differently. And he could speak those words of healing and peace. See, he met Martha in speaking truth to her. And what he did for Mary was he wept with her. Jesus meets us right where we are. So I want to encourage you, if you're going through disappointment today, if you're going through loss, I want to encourage you. The Lord is with you, and he wants to meet you right where you are. So take that path away from focusing on what was lost and turn it to Jesus and talk to him. Trust in him. Tell him how you're feeling. Tell him what you've lost. Let him speak to you. This is what we do as his kids. We are in relationship with him. And so I encourage you today, no matter the loss or the disappointment, Jesus is going to see you through. We know that at the end of this story, he raises Lazarus from the dead. And what a miracle to see their brother walk out of that tomb alive. I want to encourage you, sometimes in disappointment, our dreams, we think they're dead. Not always. Trust in the Lord. He knows. What do we do in disappointment? We go to Jesus, our healer and our resurrection and our life. Today, invite the Lord to resurrect those things in your life that you think might be gone. Invite him. Invite him to do it. I hope that you are encouraged today. I want you to know that through all of life's circumstances, Jesus is always with us. He's there to comfort us, to help us. And my prayer for you is that you know him in a deeper way, that you will have a hunger and a thirst to know Jesus and see him in a new way, in a different way, in a deeper way. Because that's his desire for you, is to know more of the Father's heart and to know more about him. So I want you to know that you are special in God's sight. You are his child, and he is working on your behalf. So trust him with the big question marks in life, and let's move forward to see what he has for our future, because it's going to be good. It's going to be great. So let's trust him. I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and I'm praying for you. And I want just to encourage you that nothing is too big for God. What we think is impossible, he can take care of. So I ask that you trust him in it. Trust him and believe that he's going to see you through, because he is. So, okay, have a wonderful, wonderful weekend, and I'll see you again on Monday.